Friends, I thought I'd give you a quick overview, an introduction to how to use spreadsheets. Since everyone is doing an ISP, and this is a skill that I think would be great that you could take on with you as you finish out through AFS and beyond. And I'm going to start out by using Excel, and then later on we can try using the Google Docs, but they all have some things in common. So think of this as Spreadsheets 101 or 100. Now when you open up a spreadsheet, you notice there's this grid. It looks like a big table. And there's columns that go up and down labeled A, B, C, D, E, F all the way out to double A and beyond. And clearly as you go down you see the rows here start out with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and on down. Which means that any cell, and this would be a cell right where this, I'll even color it in here. Right here where it's yellow here, this is a cell and has a certain identification associated with it. And essentially what it's going to be is by the column and by the row. So this would be B2, kind of like when you play Battleship. And depending on what you have open up in the upper left hand corner, it says B2. And if I move over one here, now it's C2. If I go down here, it's B6. So every cell has its own kind of code or name associated with it. So I'm going to get rid of that yellow there. Let's start thinking about how you could use data and how you can put these things in here. There's basically 3 different ways in which you can enter data. One is you can actually type stuff, like put in letters on science is fun, of course it's fun, whatever you want to type in, and that's actually called alphanumeric, but basically letters and things. A second thing you can put in is actually numbers. So 23, 45, whatever. Now if you put in letters and numbers at the same time, it's going to recognize this as only being letters pretty much. So if you write, let's say I recorded the mass of something, I said it was 23 grams, and I write in 23 grams. Well, Excel is going to recognize this as not as being a number, but as being letters. So that's one thing you have to kind of keep in mind. And then the last thing that you can enter in here, I'll talk more about this in a little bit, is going to be formulas. And that's where the real beauty of spreadsheets come into play, where you can actually graph things and use the numbers to get averages and sums and all kinds of great stuff. And this is basically why you'd want to be using it for your ISP. So for example, let's say if I can find this here. Yeah, here you go. Let's say that if you did a science experiment and that you were comparing the effect of fertilizer versus compost on plant growth, and you measured what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plants here. And this would represent the height of the plants in centimeters, and this would be to represent the height of the grown in compost in centimeters. So what would you do with that data when you're finished? You go, well, you might want to compare the averages possibly. And the cool thing about this is that I think you know that if you typed in on a calculator 23 plus 12 plus 34 plus 26 by 12, you could then get that and get the average. Well, there's some simpler ways you can do that with a spreadsheet. Now, if you wanted to actually just add them all up, kind of like we did in a calculator, there's a couple ways you can go about doing that. Right down here I'm going to put in, on this, I'm going to enter a formula. Now, how you enter formulas is you always hit the equal sign. As soon as I hit the equal sign like that, the Excel or any spreadsheet knows that we're not putting in letters or numbers, but we're actually entering a formula. So what I can do is I can say, well, what's 23 plus 12 plus 34? Well, I could just type in equals 23 plus 12 plus, and go all the way down the line, 34 plus whatever. And when I do that, I can hit return and I get the number, which is basically 23 plus 12 plus 34. However, there's a probably better way you can do that. And the better way of doing that, let's say I want to add up all these columns, I can put in equal again, which tells me that it's a formula. But then there's these different formulas you can put in. One of them is, if you think about it, you're really getting the sum. So if I put in SUM, notice down here a little window opens up and it's all the different types of formulas that start with S. And then you put in a left parentheses. And here's the cool part. All I have to do is highlight this. You'll notice it goes from B3 up here down to B8. I close it with a parentheses, and next thing I know I have 125. And that'd be the same number, hopefully, if you did a calculator and wrote 23 plus 12 plus 34 plus 26 all the way down. So it's very quick and simple that you can do that. Now if I wanted the average, what I would do is I'd divide this by how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 125 divided 6 would be the average. Well, There's lots of ways I can do that also. One way is I can say, well, I can put in equals. I can say 125. And when you do division, and this is true on many calculators, you do a backslash, in this case divided by 6. And when I hit return, I should get an answer, which is 20.8333. We can worry about formatting later. Another way I could do that is I could say, okay, here's my equal. I can say, let's take this, whatever's in this cell, which is B10, which happens to be 125/6. And I get 20.8333 again. What a big surprise. And here's really the coolest way of doing this. The coolest way of doing this is that I hit equal sign again, which tells me that we're doing a formula. I can write A, V, E, R. And notice when I type that in, it goes like, do you think you want average? And I do. I literally type in average. I do my left parentheses again, highlight the column I want, close the parentheses, hit return, and gee, what a surprise, it's 20.833. So I could have actually very easily done this in one step. And so if I was to get rid of all this stuff here, and let's say down here I want the averages. So again, I put in equals, average, and actually I can, well, I can use that. It's not uppercase sensitive. Highlight it again, and next thing I know, I have 20.833. Pretty cool. I got the average like that. Now let's say different kind of data here, but you'll see how this is very helpful. Let's say I want to add these two things together, 23 plus 15 going across this way. So let me just highlight those kind of things. I think you could do this in your head and wouldn't need a calculator to do this, that 23 plus 15 is 38. But again, what you could do is say equals this plus this, and next thing I know I have 38, which is kind of cool. The other thing I could have done is easier, actually say equals sum. It actually might be more steps here, but I could just highlight this again, right, and do the same kind of thing. 38. Now here's where another really cool thing about this. Let's say I want to do the same thing all the way down here. I want to say 12 plus 34, what do we get here? 34 plus 25, what do we get here? Well, I know you're familiar with copy and paste. If I copy fertilizer, I can paste it down here, and it says fertilizer. But when you copy and paste formulas, it actually knows that you don't want 23, you don't want this cell, B3 plus C3. You actually want B4 plus C4. And so when I hit copy here, and then paste, notice it doesn't say 38, it says 46. Big surprise. 12 and 34 is 46. When I click on this, you'll notice that what's underneath here is the actual equal sum again, B4 times C4, or B4 to C4, where, whoops, up here, get rid of that, it was B3 plus C3. So it actually knows that that's what you want to do, keep changing it. So what I can do is, copy this one and paste it in, paste it in, paste it in, and in one simple stroke it does it very nicely for you. The other thing you can do is if you highlight this one and then take the corner and drag it down, it automatically does it for you too. So that's pretty cool. So I think you can see how this can be a very helpful kind of situation. And that copy and paste also works for the average here too. Let me get rid of this thing here. If I was to go back to my little column down here, I want to get the averages in down here. So let me highlight where I'm going to be putting the average. I'll pick a nice blue this time. I type in, remember, equals, average, highlight my column here, and I hope it's still going to be 28.33. It is. But now what I can do is I can copy this one right here, this 20, it's highlighted right now. Actually, maybe using blue is not a good thing because that's a highlight color, but if I was to highlight this and copy, remember you can always do edit copy from up here, or you can do Command C. I tend to use the Command C, but Apple copy. And over here I'm going to paste it. When I paste it, it automatically knows that I want the average of this column, not that column. Because remember when I type on here it says average of B3 to B8. And when I click on this one it says average of C3 to C8. So I'm going to stop here and let you maybe practice some of this. But it's pretty cool in what you can do with a spreadsheet, where you can put in your numbers and manipulate them, multiply them, divide them, subtract them, all kinds of square roots, all kinds of cool things. And I hope you'll see now why spreadsheets are a very handy thing to do, not to mention later on we'll talk about graphing. So I hope this works, and we're going to spend some class time just practicing this kind of stuff. But this will be really helpful when you start looking at your data, because everyone will be collecting data that needs to use some type of analysis, whether it be averages, whatever, but and definitely graphing also.